Hello everyone and welcome back to my YouTube channel. There's a topic that's been on my mind quite a lot recently, but also in general, and that is diversity in theatre. Now, this is not a small topic, I am well aware, and there's no way I'm going to be able to do a really in-depth analysis in a relatively short YouTube video. But oh, I think it might be the cleaners. Damn it. Ugh. Okay, I'm just gonna hope you can't hear people talking outside. But I have been thinking a lot about it and I just wanted to share my general thoughts. And if you want me to go more in depth, then feel free to let me know in the comments. Also, as a disclaimer right off the bat, I'm going to be talking about inclusivity primarily in regards to race. And while I will be talking quite generally, and these things can be extrapolated to gender, sexuality, disability, etc., these other characteristics have different barriers and needs when it comes to diversity and representation. So just bear that in mind. So recently I've been thinking a lot about quotas and how they've always been divisive and kind of how they're being used, particularly in the theatre industry. The main argument that I've heard against quotas tends to be along the lines of, we want to do the best play by the best playwright with the best director and the best actors in the room, and it shouldn't matter what their age and gender and sexuality and race is, we just want the best people. And to be honest, I used to fit in that camp when I was an ignorant teenager. I used to think the same. It should be about the best people and it shouldn't be about any kind of characteristics those people might have. I know better now.
Yay systemic discrimination and unconscious bias. Woo!
Now, being more informed, my opinion is that quotas are tools, and it's the way that we use quotas that determines whether they're a good tool or a bad tool. We can use them in great ways or not so great ways. And I think the great thing about quotas is that it forces people to look beyond their sphere of knowledge. A lot of the gatekeepers in theatre tend to be, still at the moment, from a particular demographic, a white, male, upper middle class to upper class background demographic. And those people are going to have been exposed to certain types of work.
Me from the editing room, even more ill, but at home. What I was trying to drive at, but didn't say that succinctly, is the idea that the dominant art is the art of the dominant class. This idea was thought of, or made popular at least, by Augusto Boal, who created Theatre of the Oppressed. If you're interested, it's a kind of a Marxist view of theatre. Essentially how that translates is that gatekeepers in theatre, being of the dominant class, are going to consume art made for them, and that is also the dominant art in society. Therefore, they're not going to be exposed to art by people from marginalised groups. So that was my point. I'm just going to slip this in.
And so when it comes to their programming, if they have no incentive to look for female writers, writers of colour, disabled writers, writers from the LGBTQ community, they're not going to have that knowledge at the front of their mind. They're going to know what they like artistically, which is going to be stuff that they've already been exposed to, which is going to be quote unquote mainstream. And then that is the work that's going to get put on. It's not going to be diverse because there's no incentive. By having quotas, it forces the people higher up that are making these final decisions to look beyond their breadth of knowledge. It forces people out of their comfort zone and to broaden their horizons, and I think that is a really good thing, and I think that is the reason quotas were and have been put in place and utilised by theatre companies and production companies. I think when quotas can get problematic is when they're used for box ticking but without any thought as to what that says in the wider context of either the play or programming in general. An example of this from an acting perspective is when a character is not written to be part of a particular minority, it's not a part of their character, it's not mentioned in the story, but that character is not very well developed, for example, and then as a casting decision, to make the cast more diverse, that character is picked to be the BAME character, or the disabled character, or the gay character, or the trans character, whatever it may be. But because the writing of the character was so underdeveloped to begin with, there is something that if the character wasn't a particular minority, it's just bad writing. But then when you add the minority onto it, it actually feeds into a negative stereotype of that minority. And I've seen this happen. I'm not going to name any names, but I've seen this happen. That is a problem, because especially if that character is the only minority character, whatever the characteristic is, that the audience is going to see, and they see that character being that negative stereotype, that is really problematic and troubling. And if the actor is aware of that, that has the potential to put the actor and other actors in a really awkward situation and feel very, very uncomfortable. So that's an acting example. The other thing that I don't know how I feel about this, but the other thing I've noticed is the programming of black plays, Asian plays, etc. Meaning plays specifically about a certain minority. Again, in this example, I'm going to use race because that's the one that I've seen more prominently, but the story is about something specific to that demographic, that ethnicity. I don't think that this is inherently a bad thing. I think it is important that these stories get told, and by telling these stories in the theatre, it brings them to an audience that might not be aware of it otherwise, and I think that is a really good thing, and I think it's a really empowering thing. The thing that I find uncomfortable about it is when that's the only diversity we see. So for example, a theatre might commission and programme a play about the African diaspora. For example, diversity-wise, you've killed three birds with one stone. You've got playwright of colour, a play about people of colour, and you've got a really diverse cast. But in the rest of your programming, you might have very safe white middle class theatre. You'll have some Shakespeare in there, you might have a Tom Stoppard play, and in all of those other things that you've programmed, the casts are not diverse. When that's happening with programming, and again, you can extrapolate this, but in this example, we run the risk of erasure of people of colour from stories that aren't about their race. It's like the only space we're allowed to take up is if we're talking about black stories or Asian stories or East Asian stories or whatever it may be. And that does not sit well with me. We have to deal with marriage infidelity and financial insecurity and falling in love and falling out of love and wanting to avenge the death of our fathers. And I think when programming only allows people to fill the stories that white society allows us to fill, or ableist society allows us to fill, or straight society allows us to fill, that isn't good. So what's the solution to this situation? I think we're on a journey in trying to improve representation. So this is not a smash the system, everything's terrible video. It's just things I've noticed, and I think there are things that we can do as audience members and as theatre professionals to improve things. One of the things that we can do is speak out about problematic casting. If you see a casting that's problematic, talk to your agent about it, say that you're not comfortable, talk to each other about it as well, like other acting friends, to get perspective. And if you find yourself where you're in an audition or in a rehearsal room where things are problematic and not okay, then say it. I've been in rehearsal rooms where problematic things have been suggested in direction or whatever, and it's been spoken about in the rehearsal room in a professional way, but it's been resolved, and that's what we need to do. We need to make sure that other creatives know when things aren't okay. I also think we need to talk about, and if we can, write about characters from minorities that aren't defined by their otherness, and allow people from minorities to take up space that isn't defined by their minority, by the fact that they're disabled, or the fact that they're a different race or religion, or the fact that they're gay, or the fact that they're trans. I think that's really important. And the last thing we can do is support theatres and theatre companies that are already taking these positive steps. There are theatre companies and theatre productions that have really diverse casts without the characters needing to be diverse. So if we support them, if we buy tickets to those shows, then other companies, more commercial companies or less forward-thinking and progressive companies will need to take note, because they want our business. If the audiences go away and show what we want to see using our wallets, other companies will have to follow suit.
Absolutely hilarious. So my camera memory card has run out of memory because I thought I had the 32 gig, but I have the 8 gig and I don't have my spare memory card with me. So I'm going to do the outro on my phone. Hilarious. Outro on my phone. That's all I wanted to say about diversity and representation. I hope you found this video interesting. Like I said, there's so much more to this topic, and we didn't even get into like coding of diverse castings or like specific different needs for different kind of minority representation and things like that. If you want me to do videos on those, I'd be happy to do them. Let me know in the comments. They will take a while because I want to make sure that they are really well researched, whereas this is just kind of my own thoughts and opinions from what I've seen as a theatre goer and as a performer. But yeah, other than that, thank you so much for watching. Quick side note, I'm in a hotel, I'm doing a show at the moment. I don't really talk about shows on this channel so much when I'm in them because I'm terrible at vlogging and remembering to record stuff. But I do post on Instagram, so if you want to keep up with what I'm doing when I'm in shows and more about that, then check out my Instagram. It's linked in the description. But other than that, I've got to go drink lots of water and warm up my voice throughout the day. So I will see you in my next video. Bye friends!